Hello, everybody. It's Sylvia and Peter. We're back. We are therapists, amongst other things, and we talk about topics in the mental health world that are either happening or has been going on for a long time, or something we think we need to do another round of this.
Hmm.
And what we're talking about today is probably one of the latter, where we've been around it before in different ways, but we need to revisit it because everybody feels pressure and everybody feels stress. So the topic of today is stress and pressure. When
Hmm.
is it stress? When is it pressure?
Mm.
And what you and I have been talking about a lot, Sylvia, is the language we use in mental health.
Yeah.
And that certain terms just become the standard, the default position. So if you're busy, you think, oh, I'm stressed. But actually, are you stressed? What is stress?
Mm-hmm.
And do we even need to talk about it? And the way I feel stress, I'm sure, is different to the way that you feel stress and the rest of the world feels stress.
Hmm.
And I have come across people who say, what is this thing, stress? What does that mean? So obviously, that particular person did not understand stress. Interestingly, I thought he was the most stressed out person I could ever come across. But maybe he was just under enormous pressure, but didn't
Yeah.
feel stressed. I
Mm.
don't know.
Mm.
But I'm sure, Silva, you've got a couple of golden nuggets on this.
It's a really interesting concept, particularly because I think April is Stress Awareness Month.
Indeed.
And I think stress awareness is quite apt in terms of what we are discussing here. Because, in my opinion, and we've spoken about this quite a lot, Peter, haven't we? How mental health or poor mental health language, whilst really beneficial and people talking about these things more openly, there's the downside that we've also discussed about some of the language that's used being used as a default position or without fully, in my opinion, appreciating what it actually means. We spoke before of me about people using, my OCD is bad today, or I've got PTSD, and there's no clinical diagnosis. I sense, and the language that I hear people talking, as you just said there, I'm busy, I'm stressed, or I'm really stressed, or this is so stressful. But is it really stress? Or almost become the default position for a lot of people when there's a lot going on, when they are under pressure. And I think perhaps understanding stress awareness, and yes, it will be different for everyone. Um, I would openly say that I don't really ever feel stressed. I quite often feel under a lot of pressure. But if we looked at one of the standard definitions of stress, is stress when things are happening, lots going on, where we feel out of control and we have no choice. Now, whether that's true, because that's an opinion and it's a theory, and it'd be interesting as to what our audience think of that. But if we work on that presupposition or that principle, so if we're always then in control or have choices, so even when things happen to us we have no control over, but we have choice and control how we manage it, then that puts a completely different angle, perception on what's going on. For example, there's lots of things that happen to me, and I immediately think, okay, what do I do about that? How can I manage that? And if there is something that I feel I don't have any control over, so what do I do instead? So that perhaps then taps into why, in my world, I don't feel or get stressed, because I'm always looking at what can I do about that? Self accountability, responsibility, whatever phrase you wish. But it's interesting where that point of pressure tips into stress. And in terms of stress awareness, it's recognizing when we are stressed. What are our signs? But more importantly, Peter, is what do we do about it to take back that control and take back that choice? And I think that's, for me, is that sort of difference between the two.
And we also have to remember that there are two types of stress, sort of
Yes.
main categories. We've got the good stress and the bad stress.
Yes.
And we've only talked about the bad version here. But
Yes.
the good version is the one that I would call acute stress, where we get things done. Like
Yes.
getting the family out of the door in the morning, everybody's got their lunch boxes, and you go this way, I go that way, and everybody's dropped off at school and at work at the right time.
Mm,
And breathe.
mm, mm,
But it's stressful, but it's also focused, and we get things done.
mm,
Then we have the chronic stress. And those who want a bit more technical stuff, the acute stress is typically adrenaline fueled.
mhm.
And then we go to the chronic stress that tends to involve a lot of cortisol,
Yeah.
which is not great for the body and the organs or anything else, but it just sits there. And I treat my clients in different ways. They come to me with their big stress. Okay, we look at the big stress, which is typically pressure, 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 and getting to the point where they feel they can't cope anymore.
Mm,
That's where the stress comes in.
mm,
But there's also these little underlying issues that you just get used to, but
mhm.
that keep adding to your sort of background noise of stress. It could be fears or phobias, where you avoid certain things in your life because, oh, that's just me. But if you can take these little ones away as well, you get more processing power to deal with the big stuff. So we have to look at life in general, in big picture, to figure out this thing we call stress.
Mm,
Where does it come from? What is it made up of?
mm.
And is this something we can control? Is this something we can't? And then start to have that dialogue with ourselves or somebody else, preferably, who can see the wood for the trees.
Mm.
And we should not be afraid of stress. I think it's not something to be afraid of. It's something to be aware of and something to learn to deal with.
Mm. Interesting there too, the point about stress can be beneficial, because we've immediately started talking this about, that stress has this negativity, but stress, as you just said, it can be a motivator, it can be a driver, and particularly that in that circumstance of getting the family out in the morning, the kids off to school is stressful, but it motivates, it drives, it's beneficial. And I think if people were aware of their stress and then use it, because it can be a friend rather than a foe, it can drive us to thinking, okay, I'm feeling stressed, what do I need to do? Because it's actions that change things, doing things as more doing, less thinking, getting things done, getting those things out the way. And I think just changing our awareness around stress, it's not all negative. There is a positive side to it too. And I think that's a great point, is for people to be aware that there is a balance to be had with the stress. It's not all negative. It's not an automatic negative thing. There can be benefits from it too. And even down to the definitions of mental health, life is stressful, or it can be stressful, but it's how we manage it that counts.
And just a final note from me on this is, you will hear in Stress Awareness Week and in a lot of posts in social media how to cope and deal with stress, that you should take a deep breath, you should take time out, you should go to the gym, you should do all sorts of things. That to me is treating the symptoms.
Mm.
All of that is great. Absolutely. I have no qualms and no problems with yoga and mindfulness, and it all works. But if we do not go back to the root causes and deal with where does the pressure come from,
Yeah.
it makes me stressed,
Mm.
then we'll just go around in a cycle forever getting stressed about de-stressing.
Mm.
And that's not helpful either.
Mm. And a lot of it's about prevention, prevention and avoidance and management. Let's try not to get stressed in the first place. Let's recognize that we are, or we may be under an enormous amount of pressure, and recognize where our tipping points are, and recognize, those points where we do start to need to take a bit of time for ourselves, or rejig our day, or do a bit more juggling so we don't get stressed. Just try not to get stressed in the first place. And I think that's, rather than wait till we're stressed and then go to the gym and the mindfulness, well, let's do the gym and the mindfulness beforehand, so we stay here rather than end up down there. So I think, again, that's around the awareness of it. Let's think of why we get stressed in the first place and try and avoid that.
Mindfulness is nothing new. Yoga is nothing new. But it used to be a lifestyle, and now it's been taken to become a remedy.
Yes.
And this is where the wheels come off the wagon, I think. It should still be a lifestyle, something we do regularly, rather than just try and pick it out on a Tuesday morning if we feel particularly stressed. Oh, I'll do a little bit of yoga. No, you can't yoga your way out of a toxic working relationship, for example. You can't yoga your way out of a toxic marriage. You have to deal with the root causes. And then maybe the yoga will work. So the right approach for the right issue is really what I'm trying to say.
And I think that's a great point, is using things as prevention and avoidance rather than remedies. I think that's a great point.
What's your point? Let us hear what your point is. I think we've lost the point, missed the plot completely, or otherwise. So it'll be interesting to hear what you think, and do let us have your comments. Thank you.
Yes, lovely to hear from you. Yeah.
Take care. Bye for now.